Me.
I'm gonna do that again. Admit. Okay, cool. So yeah, what exactly was the difference that you saw from the first time buyer and were the other set of buyers second home buyers or investors?
Second home buyers.
Okay, so tell me again the difference between the two that
Uh,
you recognized.
so I think overall the main difference is especially on the loan side, they had all their T's ready. They had their pre-approval. They kind of had an idea of what they were looking for, just something with a lot of land.
Mhm.
Um, and it was a lot easier to pull the trigger. They were like, okay, this is the one, it has the three. Usually I try to get like, their must-haves, and these guys came knowing what they needed and what was optional, and so that made it pretty easy.
That's
Yeah.
exciting. And
So
the first time buyers were,
I can't remember how many homes. I have to look back, but we saw quite a few homes.
oh, okay. Are you tracking the homes that you're showing your clients? You should, if you're not, do
Mm.
that. Track them. I started doing that. I never used to, but I started doing that last year for my one set of clients it was taking a long time. I think it took me 9 months to find them a property because the wife had an idea what she wanted, had an idea of what he wanted, and it just kept clashing. And one felt like they were giving in to the other, and their needs weren't being met. So I had quite a handful of properties that we saw together, and it was great to see what they were listed at, what they thought that they would have offered at, and even some of them we did offer on and didn't get. But it was interesting to see where they ended up selling at. So it's just a fun metric to kind of keep track of, like you have so many things to keep track of. This is one more to keep track of, but it can also give you enough metrics for you to be able to utilize and have that market knowledge for those specific areas. You know what they started out at, and you know where they sold at, and you can get specific and hyper local to some of the different neighborhoods that you're showing. So start keeping track. And it also can be something you can use on the flip side for listings and listing presentations. When a buyer is prepared, like that second home buyer, they knew what they wanted. They knew how to, what they could filter through their wants and must have type of list, compared to the first time buyers who just didn't know, like, they're like the shotgun scatter. It just kind of goes everywhere. They just want to look at anything and everything that's in their range that they can purchase. So it's something that you can share at a listing, when you're prepared and you have, an organized structure of how you want to get from A to B, instead of, when we sell your property here and you go to the next one, let's do this approach here. So we go efficiently looking at properties versus, all over the board. And plus it just
Mhm.
shows that you're tracking metrics and all that kind of good stuff. But okay, what else do you have on the horizon? Do you have any other buyers or sellers that you're working with?
I have a few prospects I need to follow up this week that's on my to-do list, but I actually had a question that I was going to shoot out to the group.
Oh,
Um,
good.
Not sure if we're going into any certain topics, just kind of free for all this time, or
It's kind of free for all today.
okay. Um, so I have like one or two prospects for sellers, but I I paused the conversation last week just because I was trying to get through as many calls as I could. But essentially, they were interested, but I'm just figuring out my approach for um in terms of like they're ready to sell, they have them as rentals. But they're like, I don't want to list until you have like something serious. Like, well, one of them told me I will pay, a realtor a fee if you can bring me a buyer. So
Mm.
but they didn't want to go officially on the MLS. I said, well, we can just put it, like members only, just, realtors and their clients will see it, but it won't officially go out. and it won't have to be on there, but you know, you need to show some type of photos so people can get an idea of what they're purchasing.
Why
But
don't they want to go on the market?
I think because they're your rentals. So I need to go back through my
Oh,
notes and
yeah.
like look at everything and see what other holes I can try to poke through this. Get a listing appointment.
So usually, well, for them specifically or just in general? Okay, so usually, I found that that is the case with owners of rentals. The reason why they don't want to put them on the market is because it scares their tenants away. What is the last thing that they want? They don't want a vacancy. They don't want to have to hold that mortgage and have it come out of pocket. That's their biggest thing. And I can understand that to some degree. But what you can do, well, wait, Michelle, do you have anything to add to that?
No, I'm listening on this
Okay.
one.
What you can do is work with your title person. I don't know if they will all do this. My go-to is Dominic at Chicago Title. He's just my go-to. I love him because I can say, hey, Dominic, I have this potential seller of this type of property and help me target the best type of buyer, whether it's somebody I need to farm to this neighborhood. Is it going to be renters that move into this house? Is it going to be a move up buyer from people that are living in townhouses or condos, or, you know, where do you need to farm to get that buyer? Or do you want to farm to investors who might want to pick up another investment property that has a good rental history, something like that? So try to maybe start thinking out of the box a little bit to specifically target an area to generate leads, because then you can create, and he has wonderful letters that he can help create or share with you, um, of what you can say when you're farming and sending it out. And when I say farm, it could be a small farm. It doesn't have to be, you know, hundreds and hundreds of people. It could be a neighborhood. It could be, you know, if it's one specific condo community, then, you know, maybe that's what you reach out to. And do you just reach out to everybody, including tenants, or do you reach out to the owner occupied units? So having a conversation with a title person can help you strategize and funnel where you want to focus versus just like kind of floating around like, how do I find the right buyer? Because I have a situation where I have a buyer for a particular neighborhood, and I know that there might be a house available for my buyer. I just have not gone and knocked on that door yet. Do I want to knock on that one door, or do I want to at least knock on the doors down the street, or do I want to send a letter to all the homes in that neighborhood? So, you know, getting specific and then putting action to what you're doing is going to help you maybe get a buyer for that particular seller. And he might be willing to, you know, pay that fee. And actually what I think is happening a lot, I think a lot of agents, I don't know in general, but I know at EXP, a lot of agents must be doing something like that, because I see so many single, single property, uh, um, agreements, the SP form and the SNA form. I'm blanking on the names specifically of those forms right now. Michelle, do you have your book with you? All of your contract forms?
No, I don't. I just, I'd have to go up on the,
Oh, the thing. Okay. Yeah, the SP and the SNA. So a lot of people are only representing the buyer because they're coming across all these for sale by owners, but there's not a lot of for sale by owners. There's a lot of agents that are working the system, working out how to farm or get in front of, and maybe it's expireds. It might be reaching out to expireds. And I think a lot of the problem why people are fearful of expireds is because they don't want to talk to a grumpy seller. A lot of sellers that have expired, they're grumpy, and it's like, well, wait a minute, why are they grumpy? They might have a valid reason that, you know, to be grumpy. Did they just expire yesterday, or, you know, that kind of a thing? I was listening to something today that said go as far back as 2 years ago, because And check, 2 years ago, if it expired, did it come back on the market? And that's where you have to really search that it's on the market or not, or have, on the market and then sold. Because 2 years is a big gap of time, but that's what I would recommend for that particular seller, and to get in front of them, because you might not just win over that seller. If anything, you might even win him over with, well, here's what I'm doing. Or, the other thing you could do is you could say, oh, well, he's not a real for sale by owner. Well, he is kind of, but he just doesn't have a sign. Ask him, well, what is he doing to market his own property?
Yeah, because I started thinking about the scenarios too, because I'm like, I the single party compensation agreement, but then also just like how does it work, I guess, on transaction wise? Like, do you just fill out all the forms with escrow, as you were as representing both sides, kind of how does that work? And
Everything is the same.
okay,
Even the listing agreement, we have you fill out what you can, and then you use the single party agreement. But on the purchase agreement, you still use the regular RPA, just the section that would have the section for the other agent on item 2B. It would just be blank. You don't put
got it.
anything in there. Yeah.
Okay.
So you don't put anything there?
So I'm gonna try, yeah, this week that I was trying to try to clarify was just because I have like some buyers interested. They're here in town. So I'm like, I wanna be able to share it. So my first approach is gonna be to get photos even from the sellers if
Mhm.
they can, like from their tenants.
Sure.
Just get some photos, put them in a Google Drive and like send it out to my listings, everyone on my MLS just privately, like through email to
Mhm.
get permission. Like, I don't know, there's like specific permissions we have to get, or it's like an email
When you say MLS, did you mean your CRM?
in my CRM. Yeah.
CRM, okay.
Yeah.
As long as you have your seller's permission, and hopefully there are photos of, did he use a property management company, or is he just doing the managing?
One of them, yes, the other one, I'm not too sure.
Oh, okay, so if he's using the property management, ask if you can, oh, ask if you can get those pictures, so that way you can market it to your sphere of people, your Rolodex, your database, to see if you can generate a buyer for him.
Okay.
As like, you have to treat him like a for sale by owner, okay, what are you doing to market your own home? And, if you're, you know, putting ads in the paper, if they still do that, I'll check in with you next week and see how that ad went. And check in with him next week and say, hey, Mr. Seller, so how'd your ad go? Did you get any offers? Did anybody offer on your property? No? Okay, well, what's your next step? Are you gonna, what are you gonna do now? Put their feet to the fire to some degree, because then, well, if you have any questions, I'm happy to help. The more open you are to actually try and help him, the more likely he will actually really use you when it's time to do something with his property. Hey, Mr. Seller, are you familiar with writing contracts? If you found somebody yourself, would you be willing to let me write the contract for you and the client, and represent you and the client, or the client? Ask those questions. Why not? I bet no one else is trying to ask him those types of questions.
I have a question, you
Ah.
guys. George, I don't know if you prefer George or Jorge.
Yeah.
Um, by when is this seller trying to sell this property? And also at what price?
So yeah, he said he'd want to potentially sell this summer if he got the right price. So there was two things. On one of them for sure I remember I'm gonna get an estimate, get get him like a CMA for his property. And then on the other, and we were gonna talk about photos and all that jazz. Um, because he was gonna try to get some photos. And then I told him I would try to, circle it with my current buyer pool and see, what I can generate and any interest and then go from there. So I wanted to just keep it like short and sweet and then like, okay, I'll follow up with you again to maybe like kind of to your point, keep the information flow like going, I'll just give it all at once and be like, oh, this guy never stops talking. I don't want to, I don't, so I'm gonna follow up with them this week, but yeah, they've had them as rentals forever. So I think when I looked into one of them's like inherited, one of them, so they're just kind of ready to maybe move on to something else.
I was just gonna ask, what are they gonna
Yeah.
do?
I have a quick question on that, Christina. If this is an LLC, I haven't dealt too much with LLCs and new agents when they see that, because when you go into the tax and you don't see a person's name, but you see it's an LLC,
Mhm.
how would you think to do the listing with the person's name or the LLC? Or is there a different form that you add? Or when you write an offer for someone who has an LLC, how does that look like?
Oh, okay, good. Okay, before I answer that, Manuel, did he answer all the questions or did you have follow-up questions to what you were asking?
He answered the by when question, which is by summer's end, I'm assuming, or by summer,
Mhm.
but not the price point. Have you guys set a
Oh, yeah,
price? Have you done
did he
any
mention-
comps or anything like that?
We didn't talk comps. He gave me the address, I think, of one that sold nearby.
Mhm.
So that's like his only gauge that he had.
Mhm.
Uh,
Which
but
is how much?
uh, like 900, I want to say. I have to go back. Last week was very long with a lot of calls. But hey, we got 2 leads, so it worked.
Hey,
Cool. And where is the property located? What city?
Watsonville.
he's doing some number crunching, I could tell, right?
I have a buyer, but just depends on the status of the property, being that it's a rental, things like that. But we'll see.
Yeah, I was instantly like, I remember a few of mine that were looking for multifamilies because there's none.
Mhm.
So I was like, okay, this can turn out to be something, but yeah, I was just kind of iffy on once I get one more information and then two also like I've been seeing, I don't know if you've seen on Marketplace and even like on the Central Coast, a lot of agents that will be posting like off-market listings
A
and
lot.
stuff like that. So I'm like, do they actually have like a residential listing agreement or they just trying to find buyers, the same thing, kind of like this guy? Um,
Oh, that's actually a really good
Yeah,
question.
that's a good
Now that
question.
you said that, I I don't know. Good question. I assumed that
I would
everybody
think
posting that would have it exactly, but now that you mention it, maybe not. I don't know. It's kind of a verbal farm, isn't it?
mhm.
Hey, yeah, maybe. Yeah, they might. Because think about it, now that you're saying that, and look at Manuel's already trying to think, his wheels are turning like, who do I know? Who do I know? That can also, like, if Manuel had a buyer and he tells you, hey, I actually might have a buyer for that property that you're talking about, can we at least look at it? That gives you ammunition to go back to the seller and say, hey, I might have a buyer, but before we can show him to you, you
Yeah.
need to sign a listing agreement. So absolutely, yeah. Now that you say that, that's probably what they're doing.
I
Um,
mean, because I've seen those posts a lot on like the Facebook and the group chats and all those things.
but there is so many off-market properties that are getting transacted. Definitely, it's happening. And then to answer Michelle's question, yes. So when you have any entity, whether it's a trust, an LLC, a corporation, or anything like that, you are going to write your offer, if you're representing the buyer, the name of that entity. Buyers, Smiths are buying this property, and the seller, anywhere on any of the documents that says seller name, you're gonna type in the name of the trust. Do you know what the name of the trust is or the name of the LLC? It's whatever pops up on Realist as an example. If it shows up on Realist or RPR, the name of the entity, if it's an LLC or a corp, type it in. Don't ever put seller of record, owner of record. That's lazy. Don't do it.
Seen that before. I've seen that come on offer, seller and record. I was thinking they can't type in. And
It's
my thought was like, they can't type that in.
It's lazy. Yeah, no, do your research and put in a name there.
So
And
is
if
there
you
an
don't know,
addendum or a box to check?
oh, so yes, Thank you. So if you're writing the offer, it's going to be the last box. I think it's number 35 on the RPA. No, maybe. Is there 35 on the RPA? 32 or 35? It's the last one before they.
In like last page where you're signing the signatures.
Yeah, there's a little box and it's right.
Entity buyers.
Entity buyers, that's it. And if you mark that box and type in the name of the entity, and then you do not need the RCSD, which is needed for an entity if you don't mark the box. If you mark the box, you don't need that extra form.
Okay, so
And if you're on the listing side, the same thing, you're going to write the name of the trust or the LLC or the corporation as the seller name up at the top. But whoever is the signer, the trustee, the power of attorney, whoever they are, their title of trustee or power of attorney or whatever it is just a title. They're going to sign as their person. So if it's Christina Morales, trustee, or Christina Morales, LLC, I'm just signing Christina Morales. I'm not signing the trust of blah, 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 administrator, blah, blah. No, it's the person.
Got it. Okay.
Make sense? Michelle?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Now, Armida and Manuel, how are you guys doing? What do you guys have cooking up? How's your transaction going first?
You wanna go?
Huh?
You
Hi.
wanna-
Hi. Good. We're just having to gather all the
Okay.
last minute documents. Oops.
Uh-huh.
Um, I really like the program. I mean, it really separated everything, which was
Oh, Skyflow.
awesome.
Yes.
Yes,
Yeah.
it's awesome. The one thing that I wish it did though is like some of the forms I'm like, well, what is that? And I wish it had an example of it. Because like, since I'm not really since I don't know all the forms and this is all new to me, like I wish they had like an example. This is what it looks like, so then we could go through our forms and be like, oh, okay, let me look for that form. Because otherwise, I mean, it says it on there like what it is, but we don't know what it really looks like, what it entitles, and what it holds true to. So, I mean, I wish they had like, oh, this is what it should look like. So that would be great. But I mean, other than that, I mean, it pretty much uploaded everything, which I was like, oh, wow, look at that. It just separated everything. And I was like, I was pretty amazed with it. Yeah,
Very nice.
yes.
Good, good, good. And
And
how's everything going with your other buyer that you were looking for?
It's going a little slow just because we had to rebudget the whole thing, and so now we have to start looking in different areas that are a little bit outside of our reach right now. But we're still looking, and we're gonna land them somewhere.
Okay. Good.
Yeah, we just have to meet his budget, and that's the thing.
Okay.
Nothing's popped up yet that'll be within that reach.
is that for Adam?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
the whole farming thing could maybe be something to consider.
For some of those, it's more so because they're looking for like the multi-unit, and those are always hard to come by. Because the investors, I mean, they have all cash and they swoop them really quick. So
Mhm.
those are some that are, unless we start getting those relationships like with the, other realtors that have those that are gonna put them out there. I think that's like,
Well,
the key ingredient.
You can start creating those relationships. So anything that is available that doesn't fit their criteria, or anything that did fit their criteria that sold, even if it sold a year ago, reach out to those agents because they probably have contacts of the same owner or similar clients, and just say, hey, I saw you had this listing expired or sold a year ago, that had this multi-unit. Do you have anything like that coming up? Because I have buyers. I have a client that's looking.
Good idea.
Blah, blah, blah. And then that's one way to assert yourself and say, hey, I'm Armida and I'm with EXP and I have a client who's looking for, I saw you had something like this and I was just wanting to reach out, meet you, introduce myself and let you know who I am and that I have a client that would fit something like this. If you have something in your pocket or something coming up, do you? And then see what they say. And people will love that because they will remember you. Because if I had something coming up that met that, I'd be like, ooh, who was that girl that called me? Oh, yes, I remember. And then reach out.
Yeah. Okay.
Wow. How about you, Michelle? What do you have going on?
My son's graduating Friday. He's in college. So
Ain't exciting.
busy. Not much. Might be co-listing something coming up soon, next couple weeks with another agent who reached out to me.
Okay.
And so that's those words I've never co-listed. So
With
maybe
EXP or another brokerage?
another brokerage.
Oh, ooh.
So maybe you want to share with the group if they ever get in those situations, what that means.
Okay, so one, yes, you can co-broker list, you can co-broker purchase. You can do it either way. There's a sharing agreement form, the ACS form to use in that situation. And there's going to be one person that's the lead usually. So you're going to have that ACS form. You're going to also have the AAA form. I think the
Additional agent. What was the first one you said?
the
ACS or ECS?
Apple.
Okay, ACS form. Okay.
The AAA for the additional agent, because
Mhm.
somebody's going to have to be the lead on it. For most likely somebody will be the lead on it. If you can fit both names and both brokerage names in the lines, try and do it. Otherwise, one person will just be the main person, and that's okay, because that ACS form breaks it out very clearly. It's 50-50 or whatever the split is between you and the other brokerage. And then that form gets signed by the designated managing broker. But yeah, you can totally do it. And then as far as if it's listing, it would be like, okay, if you and I are going to list a deal together, then I'll handle all the marketing and you'll handle all the showings, or, however you guys want to structure that is between you two. And then whoever has and I say usually there's a lead typically because one person has more of a relationship with the client.
Right.
Usually that's how it is. Sometimes it's not. But yeah, you just do it like you would if you were on a team.
Okay.
Hey, Christina, and what do those abbreviations stand for?
The AC, do you have those in front of you, Michelle? Additional agent agreement is the AAA.
Oh, the AAA, yes. I don't know what the ACS means. That's the first time I heard that one from you.
Agent compensation. What is that one, Jorge? Agent compensation. I don't remember.
Agreement?
Which one was it? Sorry.
Oh,
That was-
yes. Agent, no, ACA.
ACA or ACS?
ASA, Agent Clearing Commission.
ASA.
Oh my gosh, I'm getting confused.
Commission.
Armida?
Sorry.
No, it's okay. I need to get my book. I used to have this big old fat book that had all the forms in it, but they change it every single year, obviously, because everything changes every year. And I'm actually glad I didn't, because it's $100 for this book, right? And I'm glad I didn't buy it this year because of all the changes we're gonna have in the contract. So there's that.
Whenever we give you abbreviations, you can always go on the library of CAR and type it in, and it'll tell you exactly what it'll pop up immediately. Even
And,
this guy.
And another note to remember, when you guys are on the CAR form, the California Association of Realtor website, and you're searching for the documents, if you just type in the search bar tutor, TUTOR, look for the tutor for the contracts. And I love that because it has little blue bubbles all over each specific contract or document, and it tells you what each item is for. It breaks it down. It's really, really nice. They used to have a feature on there that you could send the contract to your client. And so I sent it to myself just to see what it looks like because it explains it in layman's terms. It was
Oh, nice.
amazing. I don't think it's there anymore. I haven't looked, but it used to be there. Anyways, that was really good. But I was gonna say something else. What else was I gonna say? I don't remember. I have a listing that I'm waiting for the listing agreement to be signed. So technically I don't have a listing, but it's coming.
Sounds
It's out. I'm waiting for it to get signed. It is a 3-bedroom, 2.5 bath with a bonus room. It's in Aptos and it is vacant. It was a short-term rental, could be a wonderful rental again for anybody who's looking to get something by the beach. It's in Rio Del Mar. Or it could be a great home. It's kind of funky and cool at the same time, but there's no backyard. That's why it's perfect if you just want to rent it and go to the beach. Or if you just have a busy life and don't want to mow a lawn, then it could be perfect. It has a solarium on the inside and an older layout. It's kind of dated, but that one's probably going to come on at 1,299, just so you know, FYI. And when it does come on, I do plan on having open houses. So if anybody wants to do an open house there, by all means, I will let you.
You gotta mute yourself.
No, we're
Wait.
muted.
What? Are you volunteering?
Yes.
Okay, cool. And I think Michelle was gonna volunteer too. Good. We're gonna have more than one open house, so this will be good. What else? But it's the biggest one out there. Everything else that is in there, that was a fun one to do comps for because I was trying to find something very similar to it, and everything else is only 3-bedroom or 2-bedroom, and they're all at 1.2 to 1.4 that have sold. But what's listed is between 1.2 and just under 1.6. So it was kind of a hard one to crunch down to, but I figured if they're in the realm of the 1.2 that sold, and it's actually a lot bigger than everything else, and that's an added value. So we'll see.
If once you do get it listed, with the agreement, if you don't mind sending us the address, because I kind of want to do my research prior to, kind of like I did with the previous house, Kelly's, just to
Yeah.
get some ideas if people ever ask for, when it was in the addition or anything like that, I could look all that up regarding permits and stuff like that. So
That is wonderful. Yes, I absolutely will. The other thing I want to let you know is, and I love that you're doing that, so you have that information. When you get into contract, you definitely want the onus of finding out the research of the property to be on the client and not you. It's good that you're doing it so you learn and you can have that knowledge when you're sharing and talking about it, especially at open houses. But once you get into contract, you let that buyer do their own research, because what's going to happen is if there was one stone that you missed by whatever reason, they're going to come back at you if something goes sideways. So you want to make sure they do all their research. Okay.
you know what, I do have a question because I do see these coming back. I forget what it's called because it's not something that I do. It's something that the OAs do. They call it I believe like an escrow report or something like that. The realtors go and actually get from the Monterey County. They actually have to pay for this.
Yeah, I think it's $10 or $15 or maybe
Ooh.
20, 25.
No, it's actually more expensive. But yeah, because he has a list of like all the permits and whatnot. But I see like not all realtors obviously do it. But
Right.
I don't know if it's something that's like, I guess it's not mandatory, I'm assuming.
Yeah, no, it's not mandatory. It's a good idea just so you have, an idea of the property. And if you do stuff like that, you always want to just let your client know, yeah, this is what I gathered, but definitely you go do your research. I didn't research everything. It's on you. And they sign all the paperwork that says, go get, satisfy yourself with all the reports. No, but the property characteristics are something that I used to do it all the time. I used to go to Santa Cruz County and use my authorization form and get everything I needed to learn about the county, from the county about the property. Michelle?
I lost my train of thought. Sorry. No, I was just thinking. What was it? Oh, home inspections.
Yeah.
So going back to that, you're trying to get prepared. You want your buyer to do their own inspections. And correct me if I'm wrong. I mean, if you know a home inspector, you can tell them I have a home inspector, or you could go find your own. And most likely they don't want, I mean, I haven't had anybody say, oh, I have a home inspector already, or they don't even know where to look. So
Right.
I'll have them use mine.
Anytime you recommend a vendor, you usually want to recommend more than one, just so they can't ever say, you said to use this specific vendor, and then something goes sideways, and then you're always covering your tail end. You always want to cover yourself and make sure you give them options. Option
So
A.
with that, you're saying if you give them options, do you make the appointment for them, or you let them make the appointment?
I always make the appointment for all
Okay.
of my clients. Yeah.
Okay.
I do
Okay.
all the scheduling. Yeah. Yeah. That's why you're getting paid the big, bucks. You be
Yeah.
the coordinator of all of it.
Yeah.
And then that way you have control of it too. The only time, and just let them know, the vendor's going to need a check or payment up front. So here's the name of the company, and just be ready for their phone call. And then they pay. Yeah.
Me personally, I go to the property with the home inspector and I meet the clients there. I invite them if they can make it. That way they can hear straight. They can be there looking at the property again. And then when the home inspection's done, he goes over the points and lets them know any questions they have. We get that all done in one shot.
Mhm.
That way everybody's clear and they can answer. So once in a great while, I'll have someone who can't go, but I'll still go for them. And just to see and understand myself,
Sure.
what's going on.
I think
And
it depends on the property and the clients. Definitely if it's like a rural country property, wells, septics, you name it, or a hillside, or retaining walls or something like that. Because the inspections usually take about 3 hours, typically. A good home inspector goes in, out, under, it can. And especially if there's a well, or if you line everything up, it could take a good 3 hours, a good hour and a half for sure, the shortest. Home inspectors will generally say, tell the client to come the last half hour, and that is, between 3 and 3:30, because they don't want the clients in their way and asking questions, because it slows them up, because they have a number of homes that they got to do in a day, or that they, appointments.
yes, that's
So
what we do.
just be mindful of that as well. And then, yeah, if clients can't show up, then yeah, you're there for them, and you can. But I used to stay the entire time at the beginning, but now I don't. Now I only show up when I need to at the very end, and then I get the summary from the inspector. Yeah. It just depends. But we're running out of time, so everybody, thank you so much. If you think of any other follow-up questions, absolutely send them over to me. And if you have any wheeling and dealing that you need help with, absolutely, you know how to get in touch with me.
Good luck, everybody.
Have a wonderful Memorial weekend, everybody.
Yes. Hey, Christina, quick question before I go. On the